really is about how are we, how are we developing leaders to, really look at from the proactive problem solving lens of the course, really how to be problem solvers and that nobling leadership. And so how do we build leadership capability and what are the defining skills and behaviors for successful leadership at Rutgers? And so we've been very happy to be able to partner with the Citizen Service to be able to deliver another lens through which leadership can be looked through and how to address problems because it's not just the leader, it's also the leader, their teams, their colleagues, and et cetera. So yeah, just a quick overview. Thank you.
Thank you so much, William. I really appreciate you taking the time out today because time is the most valuable thing you can ever give to anyone else. So thank you. So my second panelist is Dr. Ken O'Brien. Dr. O'Brien has worked not just in, of course, academia field. He's worked in high school. He's worked in HR, as well as performance measurements and quality and compliance. So, Dr. Ken, if you would take a moment and introduce yourself so that they understand all of your accolades and everything that I know them to be.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. Happy Wednesday. My name is Dr. Ken O'Brien, and a little bit about me is, like Michelle said, I have a little bit of a variety of different experiences through all different lenses. But in my particular role in HR, I was a performance management in charge of classification and compensation for DC government. Within DC government, we have 35,000 employees, and I really looked at it from a lens of position descriptions, but more so job analysis, more so equity in terms of compensation, and really looking at it from a unionized environment in terms of how we treat individuals and what does that look like within the HR lens itself. So really happy to share some thoughts, really happy to share some experiences, and I'm really glad to be here this afternoon. Thank you, guys.
I so appreciate both of you taking the time out to have this discussion. You guys can post questions in the chat, and toward the end, we will review and address those questions. But I also want to introduce someone else who was on this call. And he has no idea I'm going to do this at this time, but we kind of go with the flow. So also on this call is Harry Pizicki. Harry Pizicki is the co-founder of the Citizen Service, also known as the Citizens Campaign. And he will also be available to address any questions or, any concerns toward the end of this webinar so that we can all begin to create and foster this culture of service, and not just in our workplaces, but pretty much where all our spaces are. So if you can just wave to everybody, Harry, if there's a few words you want to say, this is the moment. You're still on mute.
Yeah, just don't want to waste anyone's time. So let's get to the meat of the webinar. Thank you.
Okay, there you go. So for our two panelists, William and Ken, first, you, William, the question I really want to ask you is for you and for your workplace, what does civility in the workplace mean to Rutgers University and to those colleagues that you have these discussions with?
Sure, sure. So as I was thinking about this, I looked to the Society for Human Resources Management sort of definition of what that looks like, right? So when we look at civility, we're talking about fostering respect, empathy, this idea of a productive exchange of ideas and opinions. And so kind of the way that we have taken that and looked at how we've implemented that at Rutgers is really, we first established this Office of Workplace Culture at Rutgers. And so it was really about establishing this office to really seek and foster greater understanding of how just individual culture, values, skills, and abilities really influence our perspectives. And so it was really about also then taking that and coming up with an approach that was holistic to identify and really help resolve any kind of workplace issues. And so really trying to build that excellence in the workplace through advancing these practices that are very employee centric as well. And so within the Office of Workplace Culture, we developed these pillars, 6 pillars of workplace excellence. And so they sort of serve as this foundation around our shared success. And they really focus on a lot of different things. We first had them sort of listed as the offices in which they represented, but then we thought about, well, what do the offices represent? And so I'm not going to go through all that deep detail with you today, but at a very high level, we're looking at things like belonging and respect, connection and collaboration, well-being, accountability, growth opportunities, and then guidance and clarity. And so examples of kind of what these look like in the wild and the way that we've kind of structured them is, one of them is around fostering a workplace that's built on mutual respect and embracing cordial conflict as really being a catalyst for change. And then also being able to hold ourselves accountable to a workplace where excellence isn't just merely a goal, but it's a fundamental part of our identity. And so specifically the connection and collaboration, when I think about going back to that civility definition, that empathy area, the connection and collaboration pillar is represented by our newest office, which is called Employee Partners for Conflict Transformation. In short, it's called EMPACT, so EMPACT, but it was a combination of the words empathy and impact, IMPACT, to really kind of work towards a thriving, inclusive, collaborative workplace through both responsive solutions, but then also preventative solutions. And so these are very informal solutions, that we offer that encourage skill development, consultation and coaching, and then facilitated dialogue and a little bit of mediation. But these offices really, this office rather, really focuses on how do we embrace this idea of a civil workplace, and how do we start to help people understand and give common language to a lot of the things that we experience every day, which is things such as conflict. So how do we create a language around conflict and talk about that in a way that's productive and talk about it in a way that gives people the understanding of what it is they're experiencing every day, and then equipping them with tools to be able to handle those experiences and exchanges with the people throughout the workplace, because that's what we do every day. That's who we're working with. We're working with people. And so how do we equip people and leaders and staff to be able to do that? And so I think one of the ways that we were able to do that was obviously, like I mentioned before, it was through the citizen service course of no blame problem solving and leadership, and be able to bring that in as another way to offer something that gives a different perspective, that gives another extension of that common language. For people to think about, react to, engage with, have conversation about, open their minds up to sort of that growth mindset of this doesn't always have to be done a specific way, or there is more and multiple multimodal ways to doing something. And here's something to add to the tool set to be able to, when you're evaluating your next step, what am I going to do next, and how might I approach that? And so that's giving leaders and staff and everyone that extra tool in their toolbox to be able to figure out how they're going to go forward and with their next move, whether it's with an individual, a group of people, etc. So for me, that's kind of how we're thinking about, what civility means at Rutgers and how we're sort of addressing that, but really all the arms and legs that are associated with how that arises in different contexts.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that covered a lot. And thank you. I'm going to ask Dr. Ken the same question, but a little bit of a twist. So, Dr. Ken, you coming from HR and working more from a job skills perspective, which is employee value, right? Which is our basic human capital development, and understanding the value of each one of our employees and what skill sets that they actually have that add to that bottom line value and productivity for the organization. So looking through that lens, what does civility in the workplace look like, in your workplace and from your point of view?
Sure. So, for my particular workplace, like I said, in my former role in DC government, one of the things, though, too, like I stated earlier, it's about a unionized environment. It's about a unionized environment, but also, once again, looking at it from a lens of pay parity all across the board, from those lower employees, and really bringing in what that metrics say in terms of how we do it, in terms of a job analysis, market analysis, all of that great stuff. But one of the things though too, and I'm always going to put my spin on it too, Michelle, though too, just in terms of data, because that's really a driving force for us, because we want to engage all of our employees. We want to foster diversity. We want to foster all of those things. We want to listen actively to the employees. We encourage individuals to and share that share their appreciation and values, all of that good stuff. But once again, we want to do it from a lens of data and what does that look like for us. So, like I said, we do a lot of surveys. We do a lot of focus groups for various departments and agencies to really try to hone in on what that looks like. Because of course we have objectives over here as an agency, as a DC agency that really helps promote all of this. But once again, we know employee engagement is essential to do the day-to-day work and functions. So we want to value each and every one of their thoughts and their expressions and all of those things, but we want to do it from a lens of being equitable. I'm going to say equitable all across the board. That's very, very important.
Yeah, see, and I think, those words are very important when we look at equity and when we look at, compensation, when we look at productivity, when we look at, human capital development, when we look at the services and the resources that a workplace can offer that literally impact inside the workplace and outside the workplace has the most value, right? Because that consistency between work life and life, right, is much less stressful if it's consistent. If you are able to utilize the same set of skills, the same ethics, the same values inside the workplace that you do outside the workplace. So I agree with both of you. I think it's very important for us to, as educators, as HR representatives, as community, to share and offer as much resources and exposure to resources that we can, that literally make our communities and leave our communities better than we found them, whether it's a community at work or a community where we live. So I appreciate everybody, the two answers to those questions. I also would like to now pose a second question. Civility in the workplace, as we know, is based upon mutual respect, empathy. It's based upon all of those things that allow us to give other people grace, right? In different situations, without judgment, without passing opinions or bias or all those other type things. So, Dr. Ken, what are some of the things that not just DC government put in place, but your current position, which I know is within a healthcare system, a huge healthcare system. So what are some of the things that you all have put in place to address these specific issues, facilitating those environments of mutual respect and empathy, making them no judgment zones, building that morale, right? Building on that morale to actually increase productivity in the organization.
I think for us in a healthcare setting, one of the first things that we really look at is just the onboarding process, really looking at the pillars of the healthcare system: collaboration, mutual respect, based off of the pillars of what we do. And I also think that's carried out within the strategic plan itself for particular departments and agencies all across the board, because even in the 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, because once again, we're looking at it from a cultural competency lens all across the board and really making sure that the employee is fully engaged and have a clear understanding of what does that mean and how we show up and how we present ourselves in that. Because I think that's very, very important though too, because people love to look at modeling. Modeling is a very important aspect of everything that we do. So I think that's really a key element. And once again, really developing that, really we do a lot of that in terms of team building, leadership development, all across the board, making sure that our managers and our directors are being trained. And once again, and hold up the light of mutual respect and support and honesty. And we do that, and I'm going to roll that in what you said a little earlier into performance management. In terms of performance management, making sure that our employees have the supports that they need in place to be successful, because that's what it's about. It's about collaboration and it's about mutual respect. So really looking at it from that particular lens.
Excellent, excellent. So, William, at Rutgers University, I know you, of course, have mentioned our online training course, Leadership in Enabling Problem Solving, as one of the tools that you all have implemented in order to address civility in the workplace. In addition to, people being able to have the tools and the resources to work in their communities and leave them better than they found them through pragmatic solutions, as opposed to pointing out the problems without solutions, and coming from more of a position of solution informed thinking. As you guys implemented this particular our particular online course, have you all seen any differences, or what kind of feedback are you guys getting from the utilizing of our resource tool?
Sure, sure. So when we launched the course, we got a lot of feedback immediately just about even just the making the availability of this type of subject. And one of the things that I definitely thought about when we were implementing this was how like this was just a totally different lens than what HR might be expected. But when we think about us as Rutgers University and we think about us as an institution being a public university, there is that paying it forward, giving back kind of way, and supplying people with, here's something that you can use in it, like various contexts, right? So the context of the course obviously was very driven towards community involvement, but then this is the other piece that was the connecting factor too, was that these skills can be applied anywhere, whether you're working through things with your family, whether you're thinking about how you apply it at work, all of those things together really complemented the things that we already had created. So for example, at Rutgers, so we have a leadership competency called proactive problem solver. And so that when we thought about the course itself, leadership enabling problem solving, it was a very easy match, because it was like, okay, this just again reinforces and provides another way for people how they can think about solving problems, whether it's again a person-to-person issue, whether you are thinking about what your strategy might be for the area that you are under at Rutgers in terms of what your work is, what you're doing as your work, and how you strategically think about that, how you influence, how you make recommendations for solving problems, how you even assess what the problem looks like. A lot of things related to being able to do a scan of, well, what is already available here? What do I already know today? What are the gaps that I have? How am I going to approach filling those gaps? And then not filling them with certainty, filling them with, here's a proposed way, a solution that we can provide that invites all to participate and to give comment. And you're inviting people in. A lot of the different people that we work with at Rutgers and how we try to socialize different things, we are very much inviting them to come along with us, not here's what we're doing, join us or not. It's okay, here's what we're doing. What are your thoughts around how this works and how this functions, and from where we're going to implement this, and how might you also do that and adopt it? But what are going to be the barriers that you might see for your success? And how can we maybe massage that a little bit differently so that way you're able to adopt it easier or faster? So a lot of different lenses, a lot of partnership, a lot of working with people, a lot of in giving them things to own, not just having us do everything, but like, how do we own it all together? Because when we think about the pillars of workplace culture, it takes all of us. And so it's going to be in different contexts. It's going to be in different ways and different experiences. So how do we make sure that we're accounting for all of that, obviously as best as we can, and we do it in a way that is iterative. It's not a one size fits all and done and dusted approach. It's a very much conversation, continuous listening, and continuous growth. So that's kind of where I would say like how we've thought about like implemented the course. And then there's more to do, right? There's more that we're going to look to in the future. We're thinking about different ways of how this idea of conflict and conflict navigation, but even just how we all show up in the terms of civility, and how that there are requirements in order for that to work really well. You have to be able to build that skill in ennobling problem solving. You approach it with a certain mindset. You approach it with a certain way of going about it in the approach. And so there are elements to that that take time to be nurtured in order for then you to be even open to saying, yes, this is how we're going to approach this. It's not just do it because this is a formula. There is a belief that you have to see how it works and understand that. Because if not, there's going to be, there can be some more development needed around that. But I think that's another critical piece is really spending time on that foundation to then be able to arrive at, okay, now can build these skills and I can develop myself into this mode. And how do I do that? And then that's when there's that readiness and preparedness where you can then own that ennobling problem solving. So a lot of different things, and we're looking at it through a lot of different ways, and there's just so many things going on, around us. So we're always trying to just be aware of what new information comes to light, how do we incorporate it, and keep going. So yeah.
Yeah, and very, very much appreciate the partnership with Rutgers and the partnerships that we have with multiple colleges and universities across the country. So for those of you that have just joined, or for those of you that are now asking, what is this course we're talking about? I'm going to fill you in on some of the background content. So as I said earlier, my name is Michelle Curry, and my charge here at the Citizen Service is to develop educational partnerships with HBCUs, MSIs, and school districts across the country. The reason why this job is so important to me is that as a social worker, which is my base, and also as an educator, sharing knowledge, creating and fostering an environment where we are able to utilize and strengthen skills such as effective communication, critical thinking, conflict resolution. All of those skills that we know in the workplace are probably the top 3 skills required in order for us to be the most productive, for us to have the best morale, for us to have the happiest employees, right? For us to provide that environment that allows our productivity to soar. So I volunteered for the Citizen Service, previously the Citizens Campaign, for approximately 10 years as a trustee. And the civic trustees are people just like us who come together and utilize a problem-solving methodology that was pretty much created by Harry Pazicki and his wife Caroline to create solutions through a pragmatic, evidence-based method that allows it to positively impact the masses. So it's nonpartisan. It's something that we're able to do in our own place and space to leave our communities and our workplace and any type of associations that we have better than we found them. At this point, it is one of my favorite words, which is free. There are several ways that you can access it. Rutgers University offers it to their staff and faculty, as well as it being offered through an undergrad class to undergraduates in Newark, and Camden will be offering it soon. And they also host our Newark Civic Trust, which is developed to fellows, which we can get in that at another time. But the purpose of the actual course itself is it's a 10-module self-paced online course that at the end of that particular course, you will receive a certificate from Rutgers University. If you are your own academic institution, you also have the ability to place your logo on that particular certificate so that your students and faculty and staff, when they take the course, the certificate will read your institution. So it is not hard to implement. And William can attest to this. What's the cost of it, William, to do this course?
It is a inordinate amount of free. I really I mean the investment of just your time. I mean that's really all. And I mean obviously that is a commodity these days, but it is definitely something that is, you know, that investment, but it is great. So totally worthwhile, and you can think about it in different ways and how you might apply it, like I was talking about earlier, and that can open it up even further to how you might approach things in everyday life as well.
Yes, and for those entities and organizations or agencies that are on the phone, or I should say on the call, it is not specific to institutions of higher learning. It is not specific to healthcare systems like Dr. Ken works in. It's for any entity, for any community. It is a culture of service where we actually teach the basic pillars of mutual respect, of how to utilize existing resources such as technology, right? Such as, you know, all of these things that are now available to us, such as, you know, OPRA requests, your Open Public Record Act. So you can request any type of records that you need to research whatever issues that are negatively impacting whatever your environment is. We all know that everything could be better kind of everywhere. So this allows us to utilize the tools so that we can participate in making it better. What I will open it up to is any questions. I am going to put up a slide with my contact information on it. I know that most of you put your information into the chat. For those of you that have not, if you could put your name, your title, school into the chat, so that way I can kind of match it to your email, and we can then begin to facilitate conversations on how your organization or agency or institution can utilize this online training course to teach people how to make their places and spaces better. Sorry, Harry, it's a habit at this point. How they can, you know, leave their communities better, you know, better than they found it. And I have to tell the story for 1 second. I've had the pleasure of speaking to a coworker of Dr. Ken, and when I explained to her what we did here and what our philosophy was and what our, you know, what my belief was, and how we are responsible to make our own, you know, communities better, you know, based upon our energy. The first thing she said, "Oh my goodness, send that to me, send it to me," so that way she can be able to share that, because as we all know, holding knowledge is irrelevant if we do not share it and apply it. So I am going to ask if anyone has any questions to please put the questions in the chat, and then I can answer any questions that you may have. And while you all are doing that, Mr. Harry Pazicki, if there's a few words that you might want to say at this point. You're still on mute, Harry.
Actually, I'd like to hear the questions that the participants may hear. I'll be happy to wrap up if there are no questions.
Perfect. So I'm just waiting to see if there's any questions. You can put them in the chat or you can raise your hand, whichever's easier. No questions, anyone? Well, I'll let Harry answer the big question. Harry, what's the next step for those that would like to begin to integrate our online training tools into their HR or into their institution?
Just excuse me, am I on mute?
Nope, we got you.
Just to let Michelle know that you're interested, and we'll set up a follow-up meeting. I think some of the things, just to reiterate, Michelle did a good job of it, but this is free, not to everyone, but to HBCUs, community colleges, and MSIs. Second of all, it's important to know that there's virtually no administrative time here. You get a course link that is unique to your own institution, and we'll give you all necessary data on the participants, from registration to what video they're on to whether they completed the course. There's pre and post course evaluation, and all of it at your fingertip. You don't even need to call us to have the information. Setting it up is maybe an hour's time. Some of the other things to note is that the course can be comfortably taken within 90 minutes total. But as Michelle said, it is 5 to 10 minute videos that are self-paced, so you can take them one at a time whenever you have the time. Important to note too that given the fact that the course completion comes with a college certificate, that it is particularly appealing to support staff, and that's where we focus most. They don't have college degrees in most instances, and this is career advancement, resume building, as well as learning about how to problem solve. And the last thing I'll say, and happy to answer any questions that might come up, is that you hear a lot of talk about civility in the workplace, mutual respect, and so on. And I don't believe it's enough to preach mutual respect. And so what you'll find in the training, a 10-step methodology to practice mutual respect, individual strategies and techniques, steps that one takes in order to engage your fellow employees and employers in a pursuit of solutions. And lastly, although there is a civic component to this, the core is problem solving. And I have great sympathy for all of you in the HR community, especially after COVID. There's a lot of angst, a lot of frustration, and the ability to get people to switch the focus from the problem and what's wrong with the situation to participating in finding the solution, and in fact having a methodology that will get them there, is extremely beneficial. We're hearing anecdotal evidence of reduction in dispute resolution time, reduction in disability claims tied to stress. This is a stressful time. We all have to recognize that. And if we have a methodology for how we get beyond our problems and work together, collaborate, as William pointed out, to do so, I think we're a lot better off. So those are my words for the moment. If there are any other questions, I'm sure Michelle or I'd be happy to answer them, or our panelists.
There are actually 2 questions in the chat. So the first question is how do I define civility in this context? So for me, civility in the workplace is actually the display of mutual respect, no judgment zone, and understanding where people stand, kind of giving that empathy to understand that you don't walk in their shoes, and how you're looking at them is through your lens, through your life's experiences, through your anecdotal experience, which is not their experience. So your judgments, your bias, your thoughts, your opinions are all coming from that lens, which is yours. And so that people understand what true empathy really is, what mutual respect is, and the common space of values, for us to have some basic values. And that's what civility in the workplace looks like for me, because and as we all know as HR, that morale is definitely attached to productivity. And when morale drops, productivity will drop. And what are the things that impact morale? Not feeling valuable in a workplace, not having the right tools and resources to do your job, not having a skill match to your job description, right? These are all of the things that can create that tension and stress that Harry was just talking about in your job. Go ahead, Harry.
Just wanted to add one thing and boil it down to, again, methodology. We talk about the outcomes and what does civility look like and all. I think we need to talk about how we get there. And one of the ways that we do it, one of our trainees came up with a simple thing. He said, attack the problem, not the person. And as long as we're attacking the problem with a methodology to find a practical solution, we're going to have civility. We're going to have the mutual respect and the kind of workplace culture that Michelle described.
Mm-hmm. And yes, thank you very much, because that drives it home. The next question is there a thought in incorporating this information into teacher administration training? So there are a few different ways that we can utilize this training at your workplace. Of course, one is through HR, right? So offering it to faculty, support staff, that kind of create that culture of service in the workplace. But for nonprofits and institutions of higher learning and school districts and all of those type of things, yeah, we can offer the training to administration and to teachers and professors, so that they too can incorporate those tools and resources into the curriculum and begin to teach from a solution-informed lens, and start laying down those particular skill sets of improving on effective communication, increasing, critical thinking, and of course, solidifying conflict resolution skills. So absolutely, I do them via webinar or Zoom, right? And it, as Harry says, it takes about an hour, 15 minutes, an hour and a half, from start to finish, from module 1 to certificate. We can do them and break it up. I'm doing work now with a nonprofit in Newark. It's a large nonprofit in Newark called Programs for Parents. We're doing a 6-series type of training where they've actually incorporated different community issues and how we can utilize the methodology of no blame problem solving, which means removing blame off the table. Let's talk about solutions, not who broke it, because once we begin to talk about blaming people, we don't get to a solution. Go ahead, Harry.
Just to add to what Michelle said, we have an educational portal. Michelle will provide you with the link. There are class plans in there for high school. There are plans for college professors, and they're all available for free. But our priorities are to build a culture of service, which means getting to the greatest number of people as quickly as possible. So coming in through HR, coming in through a continuing education program or platform placement is really the best place to begin.
Absolutely. And as I said earlier, for those of you that are institutions of higher learning, you can choose to put your logo on that certificate, so that when your faculty, staff, community, surrounding community, because anyone can access your continuing ed platform, anywhere in the world. We've actually had people log on to Rutgers from other countries. They found it online and they logged on and they took the course and got their certificate from Rutgers University. So there are many ways, that we can do it. I am here. My job is to open these portals for discussion and how to make it work with the, as I always say, the feng shui of your organization. And I am going to share the screen now so that you guys will have access to my actual contact information. So bear with me a second and I will pop that up for you. And if you have any questions, as I said, you can actually reach me and my colleague, David Sherwin, who also works with onboarding and setting organizations up for implementation of the use of our products. So I'm going to pop this up for you. And there you have it. So my information is right. Oh, and just so you guys know, this is literally what the certificate looks like. That is what the certificate looks like. As you can see, it now has Rutgers logo on it, along with Harry's signature. And this right here is my contact information along with David Sherwin. As I said, I do HBCUs, MSIs, and school districts. David Sherwin actually does the community colleges. But you can reach out to either one of us and we'll make sure that you get to the right person. The goal is to make sure that you get the tools and resources for your agency, your organization, your institution, so that we can begin to build this culture of service. Um, I think that's the best method, the best tool we have right now is for people to understand how to utilize the power that they have to make their communities better. Harry, do you have any finishing remarks at all?
Just my sympathy for everybody in HR and the hard work you put in, and hoping that although this course is not a panacea, it's at least a free benefit for your support staff, and hopefully something that will create more of a solution instead of a complaint focus among your employees.
Thank you. And just so everyone will know that I will send a follow-up email that will, of course, have the link for you to watch the video of this webinar, as well as information for the course, and just a few next steps so that we can make sure that we get moving. As you guys know, we're in a time zone. So we have to make sure that we put out there what everyone needs so that they can keep developing, keep moving forward, and create these communities so that our places and spaces become better. And I really want to thank you for your time today. And thank you. You'll be getting an email. This is just a third in the series, so I still have 2 more. So if you want to respond to me back with any suggestions on what you would like to discuss or anything like that, please feel free. And again, Dr. Ken, William, I really, really appreciate your time, and thank you. And everyone, be safe and have a great, productive day.